Hello and welcome to Uprooted. My name is Vanessa Eli.
And my name is Anitra Alexander.
And we are so glad that you're here with us. This is our invitation episode video, and we're going to briefly talk a little bit about Uprooted. We hope you would learn more in our first series. Before we get into that, we're just going to debrief this last year and what it means to launch Uprooted in 2021. So, Anitra, what was 2020? What was that like for you? And talk a little bit about what that means for uprooting all of that and launching Uprooted in 2021.
Wow. So where do I even start? The crazy thing about it is I genuinely don't even know if I've fully processed all that 2020 was. So I think a lot of us went into the beginning of the year being like, oh, this year I'm going to receive 2020 vision. Like, this is it. This is going to be the year that changes everything. And I think that we actually got exactly what it is that we prayed for, but it just looked very differently than we anticipated. So I know for me in 2020, my eyes were definitely opened to a lot of things that I had neglected, a lot of things that I had suppressed. 2020 really allowed all of us to be able to slow down, to be able to be more present in our lives, and to really take the time to think about and reflect on the things that are important to us or should be important to us. And so while I don't want to minimize, the hurt, the pain, all of the trauma that happened in 2020, I can still say that there were still a lot of great things that did come out of 2020. A lot of us got to spend more time with our families. A lot of us realized how important family was. A lot of us realized that, God can meet you exactly where you are. And so, while 2020 was very traumatic to me, it definitely made me really grateful for life in general and for the things that I may had taken for granted previously. So what about you? What was 2020 like for you?
Yeah. So 2020, and even while you're saying that, for those who are watching, we actually had plans to launch Uprooted in 2020. God and his plans and his vision is obviously so much more greater than we can ever plan or conceive for ourselves. But even when you were saying that, I remember me and us being in planning mode for Uprooted, and we were organizing, we're getting our scripts together. We're so excited. And we felt this was a vision from God. Side note, our podcast has been in the works since 2018, was another name originally. Now is Uprooted. We'll get into that later. But yeah, 2020 was, I felt, and I think this is something for me personally, I felt as if 2020, I was writing in pencil all year. And I had to erase and rewrite. And pencil's great. It gives you, a safety net of mistakes or trying things out. But I think for me and my personality, I'm like, I want it to be intentional.
Yeah.
How can we be intentional when we're writing in pencil if we don't know if rough drafts are going to actually work? And if I am actually working, am I being intentional in the season? And am I stewarding my time? While, like you were just saying, we were experiencing so much trauma. And I was experiencing so much trauma, even just watching the news and hearing relationships and what people were going through, and in my leadership roles and shepherding and stewarding over people that God has given me, and leading in the best way that I could. I think that is where my heart was aching the most, is how can I be intentional when I'm writing in pencil? And I think God gave me and forced me to give myself and to give people a lot of grace. And maybe I realize that maybe whenever I'm in crisis or whenever I'm stressed, I want to fix it. I want
Mm-hmm.
to make something permanent, or um, I want to do that. But ultimately, I don't. I don't have control or what is happening, and so it was really this like balance between giving myself grace, giving others grace, and really trusting in God's plan for what He was trying to reveal.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very lonely at times, and it felt really isolating. Obviously, I'm sure many can relate to that, but that definitely was the narrative here. Um, Even with our podcast, like we had plans to do this last year, and then God really gave us a vision towards the end of the year that launching Uprooted in 2021 was actually um, where his hand was, and it was up for us to just be obedient and trust that and still have motivation to get behind that. And
Mm-hmm.
so here we are, and here is Uprooted, and we're so excited that you're here with us and that you're experiencing this with us. Let's talk a little bit about why 2021 for the beginning of Uprooted. Yeah, why don't you start, Anitra?
I actually want to touch on something that you said about the piece about writing in pencil and
Yeah.
you coming to the realization that there's just a lot of things that are out of your control. And like you said, I don't think that it's just you that feels that way. I think that a lot of people, 2020 has caused a lot of people to have to do that self-reflection and
Mm-hmm.
to get to a place where they've accepted that a lot of things are going to be out of your control. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what Uprooted is all about, is doing
Mm,
that work to dig and get to that realization that I can't do this, number one, by myself.
yeah.
Number two, in order for me to be able to move forward, there's some things that I have to let go of, including
Mhm.
control, which is one of the hardest things I feel like a lot of us struggle with. And so why 2021 when starting up Uprooted is for that very reason. I think a lot of us have
Mhm.
gotten to the place where we, may be lost and we don't know quite where to start. And I'm happy to say, and I'm prayerful that Uprooted can be that starting place for many
Yeah.
people in order to move forward. As we've already seen, 2021, may honestly be heading in a similar direction that 2020 did. I
Mm.
know a lot of people see, the new year as like that clean slate, and it's okay to view, the new year as such. This is a time where, as you said, we can give ourselves grace for the past year, kind of shed those things and move forward. But we also still have to go into the new year realizing that, things may still happen, but how
Yeah.
can I position myself in a way that despite what's happening, I can still continue to grow and to move forward and to live in,
Mhm.
God's abundance for my life, that abundance that God has promised
Yeah,
me.
exactly. So a little bit about Uprooted, just like what you were saying, Anitra, positioning Uprooted for the beginning of this year. Um, It is our vision, and really it was God's vision given to us to carry out, to steward over, and to connect with a larger community. But Uprooted is a community podcast that will equip you to unpack, unlearn, and uproot what hinders you from living in God's abundance for your life. And so you just touched on that. Um, I'm sure there is many of us, well, I'm sure there are many, many of us right now who maybe when you had that time in self isolation, there's stuff that came up. And Anitra and I really felt convicted that this was the time to launch this because Uprooted would be a place to come together in community, online community from all over, to be able to unpack, unlearn, and uproot what hindered us, not even just from 2020, but like the stuff that happened before 2020 that came up in 2020 that now we're looking at and we're like, oh my gosh, what is this? Where did this come from? Because it is so closely in Anitra and I's testimony and in our stories of us actually going through this process ourselves, to get to where we are right now. But I say that with a huge disclaimer that that does not mean that we have uprooted everything in our life that keeps us from living in God's abundance for our life, and keeps us. And whenever we say abundance, we mean God's will for our life, his promise for our life, and his call over the life he gave us. Because we know that there are distractions and stuff in the world that keep us from being authentically who we were made to be. And so, yeah, we've gone through this in somewhat similar times, but God really aligned us together with our friendship, and we were really feeling convicted to use our friendship and our connection and our relationship to create something to invite people into to do that with us, because we're still doing it. We just now know that unpacking, unlearning, and uprooting really can get us to the root of the things that God wants us to surrender to him. And that doesn't just take a 30-minute podcast episode. That doesn't just take a month or a session or whatever. I mean, me personally, I've now been going to therapy for what is 2 years, working through stuff that I should have been doing 6 years ago. And so 10 years ago. So it's like, this is a work in progress. We're all broken vessels, but we just felt so convicted to create a platform to invite people and to extend an invitation to come with us, especially as we're going on 2021, recovering and healing from this last year. Like, come with us. Let's do this together. We're not perfect, but we believe in this redemption that God can do over your life. So whoever you are, wherever you are at in your life and your belief, like we welcome all, and we want you, we want your perspective, and we want to hear from you, we want to learn from you, because it really is through relationships and through people that we can go through this. I would not be able to get to where I am. I'm not saying that I'm in a perfect place, but I'm in a progressing place.
Right.
I would not be able to be where I am, honestly, without Anitra. And I say that so like humbly, and I say that just so like holistically with my whole self. Like, I have to have a person that will call out distractions, that will call out, you're being a little, like this, or girl, I think that you can get together a little bit in this way. And I appreciate that. We need that. And obviously those relationships take time, but we are just such big believers in community and close relationship. And we wanted to invite people to be in community with us, especially as we start 21 on this new leaf and new journey towards healing.
I agree. I agree with everything you said. And that's a beautiful thing, is community is where healing happens, right? I know one of my previous churches that I used to attend always said that salvation happens vertically and healing happens horizontally. It
Wow.
happens through relationships. And so, as Vanessa said, we just want to invite you guys to come along on this journey with us. We are going to be walking alongside you in this process. As she said, she's been in therapy for 2 years. I'm about to start therapy this year, which I am super, super excited about. So as we go through our journeys ourselves and we start to learn and develop, tools to help us through this process, we just want to create a space to share those tools with other people and to also, learn from you guys and learn from each other. So we want to invite you to join the Uprooted community.
Yes.
We do have some social media platforms that you can go ahead and follow. Find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook, and let's get connected. Let's walk on this journey of healing together. Let's walk side by side along this process and show up in the world as the people that God has truly created us to be, because that's where impact is.
Yeah.
Us going through this process, us releasing, us uprooting some of the bad habits, some of the horrible narratives that culture has created. That's where impact can happen. So yeah, we want to invite you guys to join the Uprooted community, and be sure to tune in for our first series that we're going to be doing, calling The Root Uprooted.
Amen.
So yeah, we're super excited. Stay tuned, and we can't wait to hear from you guys.